All right, so here we are. Jason, thank you for chatting with me. This is our long-awaited one-on-one interview. Seems like every time we talk, we get closer and closer to actually meeting in person. We did
Right.
phone, now we've got some video, and hopefully next time we'll do this over drinks.
Sounds good. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't know Dunwoody that well, so you'll have to introduce me to a place.
sounds good. We've got our share over here. So we want to talk about our yard signs, our partnership, but also wanted to talk a little bit broader about your work and about art in general. Dunwoody's, as you know, is not at the avant-garde of the arts world, but are certainly moving in that direction, especially with public art. And the amazing thing about all of this is it's really shown the power of art and public art in particular. And so I want to talk about that. But let's just go ahead and jump right in, and let's talk about the elephant in the room, and let's talk about the yard sign. So if you want to start, go ahead and let's talk about how this kind of evolved, and maybe from when you first found out about it or you and I first talked to where we are now.
Sure, right. I'm sure everybody who read the paper saw the little bit of art drama that happened.
It's like an ongoing soap opera between us, huh?
Yeah, but that's good though. It's exciting on all accounts.
Yeah.
I have my theories, and we haven't spoken yet about this, which I think is curious.
This is like live. This is first time.
Public art itself, yeah. But what I imagine happened is this, and then I want to hear from your point of view, because I'm willing to bet that we probably see things the same way. So back in 2009, at that point, the project felt almost old to me, because I had been conducting it in Savannah for a while, and Hope Cohn, who was the curator at Spruill then,
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the last shows she organized was one called Emerging Artists,
Mm-hmm.
and this was during the financial market collapse, and I had just accepted an invitation to go to China under the premise there of being a visiting scholar and a visiting artist, which quickly devolved to teaching English to survive. But it was an opportunity there, whereas here there were few opportunities for designers and artists during the collapse. So one of the last things I got to do was, through Hope's show, was install the mural on the barn, and a lot of that was Hope's idea, and it fit perfectly with kind of my approach to using the project, which was putting it as an art piece in a non-traditional format, and I love that it was right outside of the exit of a Walmart.
Right.
Perfect.
Right.
So after I installed it, I moved to China and was actually doing the project there. Fortunately, I never got arrested, but I learned how to translate it, and a lot of my students helped me kind of install it in different places. In Chinese, it's 一切都会好的, and it was fun to have the project going on there for about a year, and then that led to doing the same thing in Japan for a few months, which is Supete Umakuiku, and so I through this project, I started bouncing around the world, while here in the West, we were bouncing back from the financial collapse. Right. During that time, we had a new director at Spruill, and at that point, the mural had come down because it was only slated to be up for a few months. And I can't say I'm surprised. I would say I'm humbled that it meant enough to the community of Dunwoody that they wanted it to go back up.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure when. I'm guessing a couple of years later, the director of Spruill decided to get somebody to reinstall and try to recreate what was there, because it meant something to a lot of people. And then I think it just grew and became kind of a unifying symbol behind the community, which happened in Savannah too. So and then it later happened after the earthquake in Japan. So I can't say that I'm surprised, but it always does kind of catch me and humble me a bit.
Jason, adjust your screen up a little bit so I can see your face a little bit better. Yeah, there you go. That's better.
There we go.
Perfect. Great.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was going to give you the Dunwoody perspective on it. So I moved to Dunwoody in 2003. And so I remember some murals that were up there before yours. And then I agree, like when yours came up, we were still in this recession. And when it came down, it was really, it was noticed when it was there, but it was really noticed when it came down. And people got concerned, like that was their message, right? Everything was going to be okay. And so when that went
Right.
down, people were calling us and asking, is everything going to be okay? Which was funny because I don't think we're the arbiters of that. But, and so that's why kind of it went back up. And then you're right, it has
Makes sense.
become embraced by the city of Dunwoody. We don't have a lot of public art. To this day, we don't have a lot of public art. And I would venture to say that Everything Will Be Okay mural is probably our only real piece of public art in this entire city of 50,000. So the community really rallies around it. And maybe now's a good time to talk about the yard signs and how creating that message on an individual level kind of came about. So do you want me to pick up or you want to keep going?
Sure. Actually, I'll throw it back to you because I'm curious. Okay. Your ideas on that.
So we Spruill had just closed down. We serve about 1,500 students a quarter, and all of our classes were shut down, so we weren't able to do anything. And so that also meant that a lot of our teachers weren't able to teach. And thinking about it a little bit broader, understanding that artists really had no avenues either for teaching or for showing their work, much like the restaurant employees that were out of a job that had nowhere to participate, neither did the artists. So we were trying to think of something that would rally the community and do something to support those artists in need. At the same time, over the past decade, Spruill has been messaging that everything will be okay, right? So we had tchotchkes, for lack of a better term, that we have been giving out. So we had found like stress balls and things like that. So we were trying to calm people down. And at the same time, we were trying to promote people to go to the gallery when it was still open. We had this great show by Eileen Braun that was going on with her sculptures and wanted people to see it. It was something that truly needed to be seen. So we were asking people to come by the gallery and get a free Everything Will Be Okay stress ball. And people were flocking. We're like, wow, this message is really resonating. And Channel 5 local news, the one that you saw, came to do the story on the messaging. So the thought was, if we could take that message and make it broader and raise money at the same time for artists in need, that yard signs would be a way that people could drive by and see the message as opposed to just at the gallery, have a piece of it, and have all the money go to artists. So just to clarify, I think there's been a lot of misinformation about who's profited, so to speak, from
Right.
this. So Spruill's never profited at all from these yard signs. Create Dunwoody hasn't profited at all from these yard signs. Every penny that we've gotten in outside of the direct costs has gone to the artists in need. So that's something that we're really proud of. We were trying to bring Create Dunwoody into the fold as a public arts nonprofit, and that was really a great way to bring them in. So now I'll pass the ball back to you and you can pick up from there.
Yeah, it's exciting to see. I think a lot of the case of the drama, because we spoke once before everything got kind of crazy, and
Right.
That's mostly my fault because I am just a kind of project to project based artist. So originally I thought, well, I can probably just talk. Everybody's human. I can just talk and we'll negotiate something. But I got worried because if this was the only, or if this was a project that was one of dozens, I may care a little less about it. But now seeing it kind of gain attention again,
Right.
I kind of realized like, wow, this is my life work. So I really can't fool around. I'm sorry that I came down so hard on negotiations and stuff, but it's like in negotiations and getting to see like the budget and how you guys have planned everything. It's really, it's exciting to me to see that your heart's in the same place, and that I'm just really impressed that within a week or two, you managed to pull all of this together and figure out something that was beneficial for the community. I'm sure that was no small undertaking, especially on top of a pandemic and all of your own. Like all of us are going through so many personal changes and people that we care about. So, as far as the yard signs, this will probably start to transition into the ideas behind it. Which is, I wish it was easy, but it's not. It's a bit complex. So but like from my perspective, back in Savannah, I took the project to the point where I was making lots of different things with it. I was making notebooks and T-shirts and balloons and stickers, and people really liked it. A lot of the other students at SCAD liked it, and the people around Savannah. And then eventually they started not liking it. It's almost like they got inundated and flooded with it, and if it didn't work, if whatever their kind of a viewer's personal concern was didn't work out the way they expected, they kind of resented it. And I was always careful after that, to where I thought, well, I don't want it to become too product based.
Right.
But this is such a funny chess game that's happened, because ever since then, for the past decade, I've been very careful to not have it become just a salt life sticker or something that's so ubiquitous that it becomes meaningless. So I've been very careful to not profit from it as well, to keep it public and keep it kind of egalitarian. And then amazingly, because you saw there was a need, there was an exchange happening between the viewer, who's now becoming a consumer, and the message, which has now become a product, and that money is going toward good. So it put me in this weird position of like, oh man, all of my philosophies about keeping things free.
I dragged you out of your tower of isolation and into the world. Huh?
Right, and I'll get into this probably when we talk a little more about it, but about design, I don't have an emotional connection to the project anymore. I have more of a scientific connection, or don't think of me as like a lofty artist, because I don't really feel like that word means anything. Think of me more as a designer or as a chemist. And the chemist goes in the lab to mix chemicals and try to figure out, to make something that's going to make people's lives better. Like, oh, now we have aluminum. That's great. Hey, I've invented carbon fiber. Things are lighter. And people would be amazed by that. But the chemist isn't. The chemist is, of course, just, well, yeah, I made that. And I think that this project is a good example of design that works. In grad school, I studied catastrophes. I studied things that had gone wrong in neighborhoods or in countries and globally. And I realized that something like this would happen again. And that's where a lot of the project began. I started hiding the messages places. So to see it work,
Jason, that's one of my key questions for you, and I wonder if you could touch on this now. Is how did you, when you came up with this idea, how did you originally envision the idea of everything will be okay transpiring, and then how does that compare to what has occurred over now subsequent disruptions in normalcy? So one being the financial crash in 2008. And now with something like this pandemic, which is completely unprecedented in terms of its impact on everyone worldwide. And then also, if you don't mind, how do you feel personally about a message that you created resonating so deeply and going worldwide, right? I mean, this message, as you know, has been everywhere from here in Atlanta to throughout the United States and London and India, and on CNN and the BBC. So if you could, let me backtrack a little bit. So how did you originally envision this rolling out? Did you ever imagine something like this would occurring? And then now that it has occurred, how do you feel about that?
Good questions. All right, so we'll start with the original intentions, original plans. And I think probably the most important thing about this project, and that I want to drive home, is that this is not about me as the designer or where it's at. This entire project, the main focus I wanted to be on was the viewer and the viewer's experience. And this comes from influence in academia, in my grad school experience, where I studied a group of artists from France in 1968 called the Situationalists, a philosopher named Guy Debord. And it's very simple. It was just a bunch of young artists that were trying to create, through artwork and through slogans and through graffiti, situations in the street or in a public place where people kind of got jostled a little bit or woken up. A situation to remind them that they're alive. You're not just going to work. You're not just coming home from work. This is a moment. And I'm really influenced by them and their ideas. I'm really influenced by a media theorist named Marshall McLuhan, who famously stated the medium is the message. I wanted to go against that and create a singular message that would fit different medium. And but yeah, my original plans was, rather than, because all artwork in the Western kind of tradition is pointing to the artist, so that the artist's brilliance can be shown and recognized. And I wanted to do something opposite of that. That's why typically when I sign my work, signed it in 1979, not even my name. So it's changed a bit, yeah.
And so is the simplicity of the message then a big part of it, and leaving it open to the viewer to interpret?
It is. It's a polarizing statement. It's one that you either have to accept or reject. When I was developing this project, I used a lot of different polarizing statements in the public, and for some reason, these 4 words resonated the most.
Right.
Again, it's humbling, and it remains mysterious to me as well.
Right. Did you ever envision anything like this happening, and the embracing of the message in the way that it has? I mean, definitely here, it's interesting for me, as have friends throughout the city, right, and throughout the state, and have heard from as far away as like Toccoa, Georgia, where people have embraced the message, to neighbors that are driving through their neighborhood in Smyrna or Morningside or somewhere that have seen your message. And it's interesting that it's resonated so deeply here and abroad.
All right, I've got a story I can tell briefly.
Yeah, great. I have one too, which I've been dying to get out for like the past month. And it's, for me, it's like the most, I've told every media outlet, as you and I know, like what you tell the media doesn't really necessarily get in print or on TV. So that's why you and I can now decide what stories we wanted to tell. So you tell yours and I'll go with mine.
Yeah, the media really likes this vision of the greedy artists looking for
evil
art people who stole
evil
the
arts community. That's right. We've taken such advantage of you, Jason, over the years, you know. Yeah, that story's changed. It's crazy. Like they have such a there's such a great story here that I think you and I are telling today that I wish would have been on everyone's radar from the very beginning, and then all this would have just never even occurred, you know.
Right. Yeah, I think it.
Go ahead with your story, please.
All right. I think this is going to dovetail to your story well. So for me, when I was in China, I remember walking along the West Lake and having the existential realization that I am a failure, that I couldn't even make it as an artist in my own country.
I think we've all felt that at some point in time.
Right. Yeah. It's every 2 years, I think, for a fine artist, you go through this. But these words hit me, which is pretty uncommon for me. They just came out of nowhere. And the words were, "You will never know who will see what you have made." And it resonated with me enough to keep the project going. And I just accepted the idea that I could keep continuing this project, and I don't need to hear if it worked or if it didn't. If that's what the point was, then it's about me, and that's not what art is about. Art is about human expression. It's not about property or like approbation or credit. I mean, it is all that, but I think that's a byproduct of our society. In the end, though, we're all going to pass on, and we're all going to leave a mild legacy. If mine is just some scribbled words that mean something for a time for somebody, then that's good enough. So anyway, that kept me going. And I think I'm just humbled that it does mean anything to anyone.
Well, not to embarrass you or humble you further, but so here's the message, the story that really gets to me. So I'm still wearing this bracelet, and this is when we did the first story when we were giving away the stress balls at the sign at the mural, and Fox 5 was coming by, and there was a family there taking their picture outside of it. And I said, you know, you guys, we had just started, we hadn't all self-quarantined yet, but things were starting to shut down. And I said, are you guys just out for a walk? And they said, no, we're here to take a picture with our sign. And I said, with your sign, tell me why. And this little girl, her name is Reagan Mize, and I can share that. She's got a Facebook page and everything. And her family was here. She has an inoperable brain cancer called DIPG, and she's been to Atlanta more than a dozen times to Scottish Rite for treatments. And the first time they came here, Jason, they stayed at the Residence Inn that's right behind where the mural is. And when they saw your sign, they knew that message was for them. And so every time, and sorry, I'm gonna just take a second.
Sure.
Every time they come to Atlanta, they take a picture with your sign. And she was supposed to be with us for 6 to 9 months. She's coming up on a year. And every time she comes, she takes a picture with your sign, and it keeps her fighting and it gives her hope. And to me, that is the power of art in general and of your message in particular, and putting it out there for anyone to embrace or disparage or have and just know that it's there is absolutely incredible. So that to me is what this is all about. If I can define it in one family's reaction to art, it's that family. You know, they come up from Florida just for this treatment and always stay at that hotel now because of your sign. So how's that for an impact?
It's a lot of different emotions, right?
It is, isn't it?
I'm sure we all feel that, because it hints to the reality of the fragility of all of our existences, all of our times here.
It does. So with that in mind, and with the fragility of the situation, tell me what you're doing with your support. You and I traded emails yesterday for the artists affected by COVID-19. Can you talk about that for a sec?
Yes. Well, a lot of this project started in Atlanta through a grant in 2008 from Idea Capital. I just graduated. My computer wouldn't start when I went to fill out the application. It was over 10 years old. So I used a typewriter I got from Valley Village, and I biked the application.
Wow.
And I thought, this is such a cheesy story. Nobody's going to believe me when I talk. But that first $500 grant did not go to the Everything Will Be Okay project. It paid my rent that month, so I didn't get evicted. I was already 2 months rent late because everybody lost their design job that year.
Right.
And then later I did the project after I got on my feet and wound up selling hiking boots at a local outdoor store for the year before I went to China. And this is what I'm thinking of now. Here we are 10 years later, and we have so much more opportunity, so many more non-for-profits and arts organizations than we did 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Idea Capital had just started. Now we have Create Dunwoody and Spruill, and we have C4 Atlanta and Dashboard Co-op and the Creatives Project. Mm-hmm. And all of these organizations are kind of focusing on a different aspect of artists, or not, I shouldn't even say artists, I should say the entire creative industry, the entire cultural industry of Atlanta. Or Create Dunwoody seems to be great emergency funding. Boom, it's fast. You can get by this month. C4 Atlanta focused on minority artists of minority, and Dashboard and Idea Capital is more like project-based, like funding a project. So everybody's got something unique. What I'm hoping is that this project grows to such an extent that we have not just one outlet or channel for aid for artists and creatives in Atlanta, but multiple, because I think this is I'm sorry that maybe everything will somehow be okay after this, but I think this is going to be a long-term challenge. So I'm trying to think in terms of long-term, especially having gone through that experience in 2008. That saved me, but if there were more outlets, I probably wouldn't have had to flee town to try to survive in another country. So that's where I'm thinking it's going to go, and we're going to talk a lot more. And I'm speaking to all those different arts organizations.
Great.
To try to get everybody all together to try to create a cushion for people in Atlanta as much as we can through this project.
I think it's been amazing to see the arts community circle their wagons around each other in much the same way the restaurant community has, to support one another. I mean, the first thing that I did when we started the fundraising was call Jessica from C4 and call Rob from Atlanta Artists Relief Fund and get, how are you guys doing this? How are you rolling out? What are the, how much money is going out? What requirements are there? Because that was all helpful. This was so new to so many of us, especially us here in Dunwoody. that it was great to see everyone support one another. And even to this day, the Facebook groups and the way that people are helping with the CARES Act and now the 1099 independent contractors being able to apply for unemployment, and the lack of helpfulness on one side, but within the artist community, the helpfulness of one to another, especially in our time of need, is great. And even you and I are arch enemies talking right now. We're all in this together trying to do our thing. So let me turn the tables a little bit and talk about Dunwoody in particular, because as you know, we're trying to get public arts off the ground. And if anything, this project has shown the importance of art and importance of public art and what it means to a community. And so as we're taking up the idea of public art, what do you see as public art's role in particular in a community?
I think that this project and the way that you phrased it is exactly that. Art is such a nebulous, lofty term. If we just say like a design or words or something that wasn't done to try to advertise something, but something that was done just for a sense of community or human expression, that's always going to be art. And it doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be a lot of bright abstract colors. It doesn't have to be technically challenging. It can be very simple. And I want to take this opportunity to throw shade a bit on Atlanta and give credit to Dunwoody, because for the past decade, I've been multiple times a year applying to aid and grants and projects in the city of Atlanta to try to get this to do exactly what happened in Dunwoody.
Right.
So I have to give credit to the people of Dunwoody, to the community of Dunwoody, that
you see how progressive we are?
Yes. I'm like, why hasn't this happened in Atlanta? It's like, and I'm showing pictures of what it looks like. It's been a struggle for my entire career to try to get something as simple as this, which I will be the first to admit looks very dumb, and it's not what you might expect for fine art. But it definitely came from a fine art background and studying artists who have worked publicly to try to achieve exactly what you're describing, just art that builds a sense of community and essentially a design that influences the way that you see, think, or feel. And that's not an accident. And hopefully through this project, if this project moves you in any way, it may shine a light on all the different ways what you see and what you take in affects you as well, maybe not knowing.
Right.
If I can reveal that, but also leave you with a sense of your own personal found hope, where right. even if the situation is hopeless, to at least leave you with words that may cause you to imagine what okayness might look like, then that may form a path that could lead to that may otherwise not have existed.
So let me ask you a question, because you brought this up. So you always have, and you probably have faced this in trying to get your project out there. You step into the High Museum and there's a Rothko there that's white on white, and you're with your friend, spouse, whatever. So my fourth grader could have painted that. Same. When the signs came up, I did have a neighbor, and if they're watching this, my apologies, I won't publicly out you here during this. And they said, that's not art, that's just 4 words. Right. And their daughter, who's a college student, said, of course that's art. Like, what about that isn't art? Whether it's 4 words or the font or the message, the idea is that it didn't exist in a public space until you put it out there. So tell me how you feel about that. Do you get those comments, and how do you feel about that comment? And I'm sure it's not great.
All right. Okay, I'll tell another story.
Go ahead.
I had a conversation with...
And because, just so you know, I'm on the free Zoom account, so we got about 6 minutes left.
Oh, okay. That's perfect. I'll just speak quickly. But I got into a conversation with a medical doctor who got her degree, I think, in surgery or specialty in surgery, and then went back and went into oncology, and just really smart. And I showed her this project, and I remember her saying, well, that's not art. And I was like, well, you were in school for 8 years, right? She's like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, so was I. For this is going to sound so pretentious, but I'm like, just trust me. It's not what you may expect, but it's not just the 4 words. It's it's the design, it's the context in which it's presented, it's
Right.
that moment. It's kind of like the brand. It's the entire package. None of that is accidental. And her argument was like, well, no, anybody could do that, so it's not art. And I mean, of course, we study that. It's not technically challenging. But anyway, the way I kind of won the argument, which is maybe offensive to her, was I said, well, what are you trying to do as a doctor? Because you're studying the human body. I have a human body, and I don't, I've got everything I need. So why do I need a doctor? I can heal myself. Your body's the same as mine. And she said, well, I'm trying to save people's lives, essentially. And I said, well, people who study art and design, they have eyes. Everybody has eyes. So of course, everybody feels they have a way of seeing. But what we study in art school is not just pushing paint around. It's studying what the images and the words that you see, how that makes you feel in the visual realm. It's much more than just mixing paint. So in the end, I said, well, I think you're doing a terrible job at saving people, because as far as I've heard, everybody has been dying. And if this project, while people are alive, can bring something other, can make them feel something while they're alive, then I think I should maybe be the one telling you what art is and not the other way around.
That's right. That's right.
Not to be disrespectful.
The thing about art and opinions, right, is I'll say belly buttons, but you know what the real phrase is. Everyone's got one, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I said belly buttons. I didn't say any bad words. Okay, so last question, and this is the existential threat. Will everything be okay?
Oh, yeah. It's tough because I don't have the authority to answer that. But every viewer has that authority within themselves, I would say. Here's what I can tell you. From personal experience, if you're going to be late on your cell phone bill because of COVID, it takes a few months before they cut it off. And you can pay them. If you're going to overdraft, take out a bunch of money and get one overdraft fee. Just see it as like a $35 interest rate. What I'm saying is, like,
Practical
most of us, we're worried that we're going to suffer because we may have a little downtime and may not have as much money or as like income or structure that we used to. We're going to make it through this. This is, as long as we stay healthy and like look out for each other, then this will be a challenge that it's not as dire as it may seem right now.
Thanks, Jason. Hey, I really appreciate you catching up with me. And again, I can't wait till we're able to do this in person. It'll be nice to continue the conversation and see where this leads us.
Agreed.
Okay.
We'll be in touch. We'll talk a lot more.
Absolutely. Be well, be safe. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.